Hello, 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 Eureka Whiskey Club members. Trevor here. Happy April. We are excited this month to be talking about all things High West, which we will get into in a minute. I'm still dealing with some home work being done on my garage, so still not behind my bar yet. Hopefully next month I'll be back behind my bar doing these, but for now I'm at my desk. So got some High West whiskeys lined up here to the barrel picks. Talk about those other ones later as well. And we're excited to feature High West this month. This is one of the months where we actually got to go to the distillery and kind of do these picks with a cool group of people. So excited to get into all of that. A few club announcements. We do still have quite a bit of openings this month in some of our locations. So if you know any other whiskey lovers that are looking to join a cool club, please let them know and, share the experiences. We do a lot of fun stuff, and we just have some openings. So we have some cool releases coming up in the near future. I know I've been getting a lot of questions about some of the tenured releases with the Sazerac products. We're hoping to have some of those barrels by July. Regarding those special releases, the Stag Jr., E.H. Taylor, and Elmer T. Lee, not sure we're releasing them all in July, but if we release anything, it probably at earliest won't be till July. So just wanted to address that. So without further ado, I would love to – I'm sorry. Before I introduce Brandon, we're going to talk about the prizes we're giving away tonight. So High West has been kind enough to give us a bottle of the Midwinter Dram. This is my bottle. You're not going to be getting this bottle, but you're going to be getting the first place winner will be getting a bottle of Midwinter. And then second place, we have a really cool High West blanket to give away. So obviously a lot on the line here with the best questions of the night for that bottle of High West Midwinter Night's Dram. So get your questions in. If you're joining us from Facebook or YouTube, you can comment your questions directly into the chat. Reminder that if you're on an account that's not associated with the name that's your membership's associated with, just go ahead and write your name in so we know who you are, and because you have to be a member to win the prizes. So we try to only ask questions from our members. And that is it. Without further ado, I'd love to introduce Brandon O'Daniel, who's the brand educator for High West. Welcome to the call.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
It is going, other than me trying to get everything together at the last minute. So thank you for your patience in my unorganization today.
Oh, no, it's good. It's Tuesday. Nobody should be in that big of a hurry.
Which means I'm going to pour myself some whiskey to start because I deserve it.
I love it. It's 5 o'clock there, your time? 6
o'clock, 6:04.
Perfect.
Are you in Kentucky today, or are you in Tennessee, or you're in Utah?
I'm at the house here in Kentucky, so we're East Coast. We're rolling up on 9.
Well, we appreciate you making the time for us this evening.
Of course.
So Brandon, go ahead if you want to just introduce yourself and maybe give us a quick background on who you are and what led you to High West and why you love whiskey.
Perfect. So my name is Brandon O'Daniel. I am celebrating 21 years with booze paying the bills this year. Started out as a grape grower. I actually have a master's degree in plant and soil science with an emphasis on viticulture, but kind of cut my teeth in wine, and then eventually got into American brandy, where I was the distiller for Copper and Kings. Constellation picked up that brand, and they gave me the opportunity to go down to Tennessee and make some Tennessee whiskey with Nelson's Greenbrier. That's where I currently am as head distiller. And then about a year ago, they said, well, hey, do you mind reaching out and doing a little bit of brand education for High West in your spare time? So for about the last 10 or so months, I've been traveling the country, preaching the gospel of High West as well.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's not a bad way to spend the day.
Yeah. So what got you into the spirits industry in the first place? You said that your background is in wine and viticulture. What made you interested in that world other than it, you enjoy the product.
So I'm a plant guy to get from the get go. My
Okay.
mother and grandmother were huge into plants, and I kind of fell into that. But alcohol's kind of been a bit of a family business for quite some time. My great grandfather was a distiller. My grandfather was one of the first winemakers to kind of bring winemaking back to Kentucky. I've got an uncle that was a winemaker and a cousin that was a winemaker. I've got a couple other cousins in the business as well. And then Kentucky born and raised. So like you can't go very far without, tripping over a bottle of Woodford Reserve around this place. So kind of always kind of fell in love with plants, wine, was going to eventually go out to California. But some of your all's vineyards are a little big and a little industrial. So I kind of like the artistic side of things and the hand touch. I kind of got started in a lot of education through the university and stuff like that, teaching people how to grow grapes on this side of the country. So I kind of liked the hands-on aspect. So I decided to stay here in the East Coast. And then again, just by chance ran into a South African group that was doing American brandy, and I was growing probably just about more American grapes in the South than just about anybody else was at the time. So yeah, one thing led into the other, and then one day I was given the opportunity to walk into this distillery, and I saw these beautiful copper pot stills, and then that was it. And I just knew that I had to lean up against those things as much as I could for the rest of my life. So here we sit.
Nice. So your history with Copper and Kings, I know that Copper and Kings obviously specialize in brandy, but Copper and Kings was huge with brandy aged in unique barrels or with unique ingredients. To my knowledge, kind of Nelson Greenbrier is more of a traditional distillery. I'm not familiar with any finished whiskeys that Nelson Greenbrier does. They may. I'm just not familiar with. But do you feel, considering, and maybe I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here because I haven't really explained all the whiskey that we're talking about tonight, but do you feel like the experience at Copper and Kings behooved you as when it came to your knowledge in regards to finishing barrels in unique types of casks?
Oh, 100%. It kind of really gave me the opportunity to really play in the used barrel market. The used barrel world is wild. It shifts more than the stock market on prices. It's one of those gone, here today, gone tomorrow, better grab it while you can businesses. And then each used barrel, I find when I get a new barrel, they're relatively consistent on how they taste. But each time that barrel gets used one more time, it gets further and further away from all its counterparts. So that at a certain point, each one becomes like a Christmas present when you get into it. And each becomes its own unique single barrel, which is super cool, so much fun. And then it really allows us to bounce around with categories and fill in holes where whiskey may not be as prevalent or as robust in that area of your palate as what we necessarily would like. It kind of allows us to layer things on there and kind of make a deeper conversation, so to speak.
Awesome. So yeah, get a lot of these questions tonight. We are going to be talking about barrel finishes and kind of what goes into that process and different barrels and how the base whiskey going into that's aged in oak and then transferred to these new barrels and what we're going to be talking a lot about barrel finishes tonight is what
Love it. I am all about it.
Nice. So this month is something we haven't really done before. We've always tried to bring our members single barrel whiskeys, meaning that sometimes everybody's going to be getting a different barrel, but the whiskey itself is pretty much the same mash bill, same style, same everything. It's just from a different single barrel. Or what we've done, we've blended single barrels and done a micro blend or whatever you want to call it. This is the first month in the history of our club, which has been around since May of 2020, where we've done different with not everyone got some got double rye finished whiskey, some got bourbon, High West bourbon finished whiskey, and each barrel was different as far as what it was finished in. So we have, and what we did is High West was kind enough to host myself and a few of our high performing managers and regional managers to come out to the distillery and everyone select their own personal barrel finished whiskey. So I think we tasted at least a dozen different finishes, probably more. I can't remember. It was a long day of drinking, but these are the 5 picks that myself and 4 other individuals that work for Eureka came up with, or their favorites were. So we have a lot of different variation. You know, there's again bourbon and rye here. The age ranges range anywhere from 6 to 10 years. We have a white port finish barrel that was picked by our corporate beverage manager, Hunter Moyer. I picked a rum finish barrel. Kyle Laughlin, who's our general manager of our Clovis location, picked a Calvados finish barrel. And our senior vice president of operations, Jason Tonelli, picked a Marsala finish barrel. And Jason's wife actually came for the trip as well. Her name's Kelly. And Kelly Tonelli, she picked a Pedro Jimenez finish barrel. So lots of different whiskey here. The tasting notes are going to vary more than they ever have in any Eureka Whiskey Club pick, which is pretty fun. But anyways, there's a lot of variation here is what I'm trying to say. So just wanted to get that out of the way because it is something unique that we've never done in the club before, and I just wanted to address it. So without moving on, I'm going to ask Brandon here some more questions about barrel finishing. So first of all, how do you define what barrel finishing is in your own words, and what role do you think it plays in High West's overall whiskey program?
So in my own words, what I see as a barrel finish is basically a second barrel into the equation. And then that finish usually bounces between 6 months to 2 to 3 years, kind of dependent upon the barrel, the size, and the spirit. Typically for whiskey, you see it anywhere from 9 to 16 months. And I believe the average one around this, we're looking at like 9 to 14 months for the 5 you guys picked. It's a layering agent. I kind of, in really crude terms, lipstick on a pig, so to speak. Finishing kind of allows me to take a spirit that I absolutely love and feel like can stretch somewhere else and become better. And finishing also allows me to take a spirit that I feel like may need something and allows me to fill in the holes and the gaps of that spirit. I've always been someone that likes to have a full-bodied, full-balanced spirit, one that goes from the tip of the palate all the way to the back. And certain spirits, are better at that than others. But by adding more barrel finishes or more barrel layering, so to speak, you just kind of get a more rambunctious and a more deeper and complex spirit than you would just out of the one.
And I know High West was the first legal distillery in the state of Utah. Was barrel finishing, to your knowledge, when was it introduced as far as like the history of High West?
So as far as High West goes, it's kind of always been kind of part of their ethos, to be honest. High West has always been known to like reach out and play well with others. The original distiller kind of put it as, I see myself as an artist or as a painter. And as a painter, I wouldn't want to just limit myself to one color. I like to paint with as many colors in the rainbow as possible. So as a distiller and as a spirits producer, being able to finish spirits and bring that into the fold has kind of always been part of High West.
Awesome. And High West, when did High West open in? I don't know the year exactly. I don't know if you have that.
I do. Hold on one second. I just wrote that down. So the distillery was founded in 2006. Dan and Jane Perkins actually moved to Utah in 2004. So Dan was a biochemist out in California. And right around 2002, him and his wife were out in Kentucky at a wedding. And like most visitors in the state of Kentucky, when you find yourselves with a couple hours, they end up at a distillery. The distillery they ended up at was Maker's Mark. So when he walked in and realized they were doing the exact same stuff he was doing back in California, but having way more fun doing it, he immediately changed his business plan. They moved from California to Utah and started the laborious process of opening the first legal distillery in Utah in over 136 years.
So we talk about this a lot. Anytime we have whiskey made in a climate that is maybe different, right? Like when people think of whiskey, they think of Kentucky, first of all. They think of Scotch. They think of Irish whiskey. There's a lot of places that come to mind pretty quick. Utah is not one of them. I think that's fair to say. Last month we had a whiskey that was distilled in the U.S. but then aged in Hawaii. I'm always interested in hearing, because High West is made in Utah. What is the climate of Utah? Are you guys sourcing grain from the state, or is High West sourcing outside the state? And then what does the climate, obviously you have a lot of cold weather in Utah. It's not as hot as, you don't have those really hot days and really cold nights for the whiskey to go in and out of the barrels like you do at Kentucky. Is there any temperature controlled? Tell me about making whiskey in Utah. That's what I'm trying to ask.
So, and you're right. As a Kentucky boy, especially, when you start thinking of great places and traditional places to make whiskey, Utah does not necessarily come to mind. And I fell into that same exact trap as well. But when I started getting a little deeper into it, I actually found that the climate of Utah is super cool for aging and especially finishing whiskey. So Utah, especially Park City, very high elevation. We're also relatively cold. I think our average temperature in the summer is in maybe the low 70s, and then average for the winter, you're in the high 20s, low 30s, and give or take 5 or 10 degrees on that. But anyways, it's also incredibly dry. And that dryness, what it does to those barrels, although those barrels aren't moving in and out as fast as they would in a Kentucky climate, what is happening, though, is because there's less water in the air, you're actually losing more water out of that barrel than you're losing alcohol. So when they put spirit in the barrel, their alcohol proof rises a lot and their volume drops. So in some aspects, you're almost looking at another distillation inside the barrel. This allows these guys to concentrate the flavors inside that whiskey at a very slow and steady point without losing a tremendous amount of spirit. I found that absolutely fascinating. So Utah, especially Park City, gets around 300 to 400 inches of snow a year, and it is a very, very dry climate. There's a little bit more humidity, of course, in the summer and during the raining season, but for the most part, that lack of humidity kind of really changes how that barrel interacts in its surroundings. Now, we do keep all of our barrels there at High West, for the most part, on pallets, stored vertically. They are inside warehouses. They are not traditional rick houses like you would see here in Kentucky and Tennessee, but they are not necessarily climate controlled either. So you're still getting the elements. You're still seeing those temperature shifts and swings, but the lack of humidity is causing the evaporation or the angel share to be very different than what you typically would see in more traditional bourbon or whiskey making climates.
Interesting. Yeah, I remember all those barrels. That's like one of the visual things I remember the most, because you walk into most rick houses and barrels are kept on their side, and seeing the pallets with the barrels kept vertically is obviously something that stands out. That it is different.
It's also very nice for safety as well, and ease of use and movement. As an ex-production guy, I am not upset about seeing barrels on pallets because it definitely makes the back feel a lot better.
But you probably have to move a lot more to get to them, especially the pallets at the bottom, no?
You do, yes, but you can do that all on a forklift, and you're not having to get in those little rick spaces and roll them by hand on 4x4s. It's a whole art form just in itself on ricking barrels and old school rick houses.
Awesome. Well, you got the whiskey turns out great, so it's different, but it's sorry, my neighbor's choosing to hammer something right now. I'm not sure why he's doing this at 6:20 p.m., but sorry if there's some background noise. Moving on to kind of these specific barrels that we selected, so we selected a Pedro Jimenez sherry barrel, or finish, a white port finish, a rum finish, a Calvados finish, and a Marsala finish. Can you kind of break down I know we have limited time, but like, what specific characteristics do you like typically see from these finishing?
Yep.
Maybe just give us like one or two per finish.
So the first one let's talk about is that PX Tremendous barrel. So this
And that's
one,
going to be the Kelly's pick, just
that's
for
going to
our
be
members out
Kelly's
there.
pick, yes. So this is going to be a 60-gallon barrel. The finish time on it was 9 months. They did a spirit entry proof into the barrel at 92 degrees or 92 proof, and over those 10 months, that spirit rose to 99 proof because of the lack of humidity. And then you guys, because of
and then, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you just one second. There was an error on these sheets. I apologize. If I assure you that Hunter's pick, Trevor's pick, and Kelly's pick are not 49.4 proof. That was a mistake with just making the cards. So if you have a low number, just double it for the proof. That is the ABV percentage that we accidentally put on there. So like Hunter's 49.4, double that. Trevor's pick 50.1, double that. And Kelly's pick 49.5, double that to get the proof. I think I gave some whiskey lovers a heart attack. They're like, why am I drinking like you can't even call it whiskey if it's that low of proof. So sorry for that error, but I assure you these are all. Anyways, sorry, Brandon, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. I saw the exact same note and was like, that's not correct. So I went ahead and changed it. But yeah, so this went in at an entry proof of 92 and then came out at 99. So for 10 months for it to raise that high in proof is absolutely wild. Now, the way they make PX sherry wine is they actually let the grapes over ripen on the vine, and then traditionally they'll actually lay down tarps in between the grapevines, harvest the grapes, lay the grapes on the tarps, and then let them sun dry into almost raisins. This causes a really concentrated, very sweet, and kind of get almost like a chocolate and maple syrup kind of aspect to it. And then they go in, start the fermentation, get through about 3/4, maybe a little bit more on the fermentation, and then fortify it with a clear brandy. What this allows it to do, it stops the fermentation, allowing it to barrel age for a lot longer, and then still providing some of those natural sugars in a stable form. So super cool. This one should be a little bit darker in color and very, very viscous.
Awesome. Which one do you want to hit next?
Next, we're going to bounce into the white port here.
And that's going to be Hunter's pick.
That's going to be Hunter's pick.
I'm not going to, I mean, we loved all the picks, but, I think we kind of gave people, based off of who was there for what reasons, we gave people first pick. And this one was the first one off the board. So Hunter got to pick first because he performed the best to be at this trip. And this was the first one off the board. So I love all of them. I think they're all great, but I did want to say that. So go ahead, talk about the white port.
So I'm personally a huge fan of white port. You do not see a lot of these barrel finishes around. I recommend if you do see one, you grab a hold of it. I have never run across one I did not like yet. All right, so Hunter's pick. This barrel size, again, was 60 gallons. You had a finish time of 10 months, and then we went in at 92 proof again. High West does a little bit different on their entry proof for their single barrels. They typically proof down to what they would normally bottle one of their core products at, and then go into the barrel at that bottling strength of the core. And then again, because of the humidity issues, it rises to a more single barrel style proofing after that. So this one came out at 98.8, and then you guys got 45 cases of this one. So with the white port, depending upon the producer, these things can run forever. Typically, though, they are finished or barrel aged for about 18 months, but absolutely delicious, very delicate. The notes on this should be a lot of like white grapes, white spring flowers, and a little bit of like spring honey as well. This should be not necessarily sweet, but kind of give you the essence of sweetness and delicacy. Just an absolutely fantastic wine and a delicious barrel to do a finish on.
Awesome. Yeah, and then going back, just obviously everyone has these notes. These were a combination of some information that High West provided myself, along with my tasting notes and the person who selected tasting notes. But just to jump back really quick to the Pedro Jimenez pick, normally we do nose, palate, finish, but there's a lot of information here, so we just went nose and palate. So with the Pedro Jimenez sherry, we have apple, cocoa nibs, and maple syrup on the nose. And then the palate, we had cherry wood smoke, dates, baking spices, and black tea. For the white port, kind of what Brandon was speaking about, on the nose, you should get a bright floral bouquet, a little bit of Honeycrisp apple. And then on the palate, we got butterscotch, white tea, dried apricot, and white chocolate. So those were the combination of a few people's tasting notes, but that I forgot to mention the Pedro Jimenez, so I wanted to highlight that as well for this one. So which one do you want to do next?
That white port, that just sounds amazing. I mean, that is hard to beat. All right, so let's bounce to the next one, to Trevor's pick, and let's do.
Ooh, that's what I'm drinking.
Rum's one of my favorite finishes.
Oh, yeah.
So the history of rum kind of, got a bad deal, and we don't quite know, where actually the true modern rum originated from. We think it kind of came from Brazil in the mid-15 to early 1500s, and then moved in the Caribbean, where for the most part it was a poor man's drink, and they were just kind of like fermenting the byproduct of the sugarcane. Since then, though, it has gained a cult classic following, and especially for a brown spirit during the summer, it's one of my favorites to drink. So the barrel size on this one was a little bit smaller. Most rum barrels, especially coming out of the Caribbean, are used bourbon barrels. This one is the exact same, and that's why we're at 53 gallons, while the other ones are a little more on the French side of things and a little bit bigger. This one was also finished just a little bit longer, coming in at 14 months. I personally find those 2 to 3 extra months after the year make all the difference in the world, especially in these more savory, thicker finishes. Bottle proof or entry proof on this one, again, was the 92. This one didn't raise a lot, which was interesting. This one only came up to 94.6. I think a lot of that had to do with just the rum and the sweetness of the original spirit in that barrel. Probably just kind of sealed that barrel a little bit more, not allowing as much evaporation. You can also see that in the fact you guys got 38 cases out of a 53 gallon.
I think this one was 50.1 proof, no? The rum?
Ah, well, I may have done that as a typo, sir. I'm sorry.
I think the 94.6 was the Calvados.
I'm sorry. My bad.
No, you're good. You're good.
Mistype.
I made the big mistake by putting the freaking ABV instead of the proof. So please, I made the bigger mistake.
Between the two of us, we'll get it correctly.
Yeah. Now let's just drink some more whiskey. It'll sort itself out.
Perfect. Done. The nose on this one, you're going to get those classic cinnamon notes, and then a little bit of the sand and the shredded coconut there. On the palate, you guys got some apple pie with some brown sugar crumble and some dark roasted coffee. Again, fantastic spirit. It's just a super cool category in general.
Yeah, everyone got to keep their bottle of what they selected, and this was from back in September of last year. This is the last of my bottles. So my local where I pick up, I got the Marsala pick, which we'll talk about in a minute. But on the rum, our notes were, and this was my pick, so I'm obviously I like rum. If you've been in the club for a while, you've probably heard me say that a while. I'm celebrating my birthday at a tiki bar this weekend, so that will tell you how much I like rum. But I get notes of cinnamon bark on the nose, shredded coconut, apple pie, and on the palate, I get banana, grassy, papaya, and that dark roast coffee is a really nice finishing note on this particular whiskey. So I'm partial to this because I selected it. But
nice pick.
Which one do you want to move on next? I think we have two more. It's the Calvados and the Marsala.
Let's go to the Calvados next. Kyle's pick.
Yeah, I think these were probably two of. I mean, I've never seen white port before either, but like I don't think I've ever seen a Calvados or a Marsala pick. So These were new to me as well. So let's go to Kyle's pick, the Calvados pick. So first of all, what is Calvados?
So Calvados is a European, specifically out of France, apple or pear brandy. Typically, it is apple brandy, but Perry does fall into this as well. They basically have over 200 varieties of apples that they can use in this style of apple brandy, and typically you will see anywhere from 50 to 100 varieties used in one particular blend. This must be finished for at least 2 years to be called a Calvados, and it has to come out of France. This spirit is typically either double distilled or single distilled, much like you would see Armagnac and Cognac. And for the most part, the exact same rules and traditions are put on Calvados as you see great brandies as well, as far as varieties being used, fermentation times, when you can even pick, all kinds of crazy rules as well. For the Calvados, traditionally you'll get the green apple, a little bit of apple core, and then a little bit of soft and graininess of like an overripe apple, depending upon how the distillation went. So for this one, they typically use French oak barrels and are relatively large. This one came in at 79 gallons. I believe that transfers to 300 liters, but don't hold me to that math. This one again was at 1 year and 2 months in finish. And then make sure that my number is correct on the proof. Yeah, we came in at 94.64 bottle proof, and then you guys went into the barrel at 92. Again, not a huge jump in proof, and I contribute that to the larger barrel.
Yeah, the yield on this one was big.
Yeah, 64 cases.
Yeah, our notes are on the nose, baked pear, obviously coming from that finished barrel, vanilla bean, toasted oak, some jasmine flowers. Palate, we got stewed orchard fruit, caramel, toffee, and warm baking spices. So all these are so unique. Like, I think I saw someone in the chat said, why couldn't you like give everyone a little bottle of everything? And it's just, if that were an option, I would have loved to do it. But unfortunately, just with logistics and stuff, it didn't work out. But like, you guys can trade them like Pokemon cards.
That's kind of the point of these single barrels, is to
Yeah.
like make something unique, capture something in time, and then to be able to chase it. The spirit industry is changing. We're not so much necessarily going on volume anymore, and I think we're kind of tilting back to like quality and like doing really hand touch products. So I'm so happy that High West is really leaning in so heavily into these single barrel programs. Some of the finishes that we are releasing are absolutely wild, and I've not had one yet I do not like. So I hope it does turn into a collector's edition again, and can really kind of make sure the brand survives.
Yeah, so I think let's see, we had which one was, a bunch of them were bourbons. Was the Marsala finish the only rye that we had, or there was some were boo rye as well, right?
So the first 3 that you got that we tried were a blend of the Kentucky straight bourbon and the straight rye whiskey. So that was going to be the PX Sherry, the white port, and the rum. And then the last 2 actually end up being our bourbon barrel selects. So that's kind of how those came out.
Well, I think the Marsala is the double rye, at least. But I think the Calvados, you were right, but I couldn't remember. So let's get into the Marsala, because that's the one we haven't talked about yet. That's the one I have. But tell us about the Marsala finish.
Okay, so Marsala is typically a dessert wine. This is coming out of the city of Marsala in Sicily. This is on the Mediterranean coast. And it has a clay, sandy, volcanic mixture of soil. So the roots on these grapevines are going to be able to reach really far down into the soil, and it's going to bring in a lot of mineralistic aspects and a lot of saline notes as well from the sea. The build on this one, you are correct, is the High West Double Rye Barrel Select. The barrel size on this one is 60 gallons. for the finish. And then again, we went in with 14 months on the finish time. Entry proof on this one was once again 92, but this one shot up like the first one to 99.0 proof. And then you guys got a whopping 46 cases out of this one. So super cool, super neat. Marsala. So here in the United States, we typically hear that really in the culinary aspect. And I think the most famous, example of that is chicken marsala, which is an American Italian dish, I think created in like 1969, 1972. At least that's when it became famous. But if you actually go to Sicily and really do a marsala track down and hunt, this wine is absolutely delicious. In the late 1700s, it was actually one of the top wines that was hitting Europe, and they actually went to war over several parts of the island just to see who controlled the Marsala trade. Today, it's typically ran by two families that have been around since, again, the late 1700s. So you should get a lot of like dried fruit notes, some apricot, and some figs on this one. You should also pick up some of the caramelized sugars from the wine that kind of lingered in the barrel. This one should be absolutely delicious as a digestif or aperitif at the end of the night.
Yeah, this one has a really nice golden raisin flavor that shines through, in my opinion. It's just like kind of sweet, but not like cloyingly like dates, but like a brighter raisin that really shine through. So our notes on the nose, we have some dried cherry, toasted walnut, which I think is coming from that Marsala wine. Usually it's a little bit nutty, slightly dry. Brown sugar and spice, and then on the palate, fig jam, golden raisin, caramelized sugar, and cinnamon.
Delicious spirit.
So, again, 5 unique finishes. That golden raisin every time. I'm just like, there it is. 5 unique finishes. This was really exciting for us to do, for me and the team. It's the first time we've ever done it. So hopefully our members, you enjoyed what you like. If you haven't already, go ahead in the comments. I've seen some people saying, I got this barrel. Vegas Bad Boy says I have Trevor's pick. Hope you like it. We had Student of Life U6W says I have Hunter's pick too. Angel Delanote says I have Hunter's pick. So go ahead and throw in the chat what you're tasting, what picks you have. If you want to throw in your tasting notes, Braden W5P1I says the Marsala pick is great. I've been loving this finish on a rye. The Marsala really complements that rye spice well. Love to hear it, Braden. Just throw in the chat what you guys are drinking and what you think of it and what notes you get. So we were super excited to kind of do this fun experiment. I want to get to questions from the audience. So my one last question regarding barrel finishes is, and you kind of already mentioned it, but I would love to hear like your favorite barrel finish. I don't know if it's the white port. I'm not trying to lead the witness here, but favorite barrel finish whiskey, what type of finish it was in. And then 2-part question, is there ever like a whiskey you finished in a certain barrel that you're like, this is going to be awesome, I'm so excited about it, and then it just was like, no, this didn't work?
All right, so probably my favorite barrel finish, I'm a sucker for a maple syrup barrel. I like that, and I like a good honey barrel. Honey barrels are a little bit harder to find than maple syrup barrel. Nelson's Greenbrier does a really good one. We just released ours for the year if you're looking for something different. But as far as a whiskey finish, I'm going to go with the maple syrup. That being said, I have definitely fallen in love with white port this spring. It is a very, very close second. But overall, as far as number of bottles I've finished, we're going to go with maple syrup. As far as finishes that I did not like, and this is kind of a general thing, I'm going to say there are some certain beer finishes out there that I have just not enjoyed. There have been some that I've absolutely loved. I like a good stout finish. But some of those lighter barrels, like your lagers and your Pilsner finishes, things of that nature, or even some of the IPA finishes on some of these beer barrels are not necessarily my favorites. And I kind of really had some high hopes for some of those, especially some of the IPA ones, and they just didn't turn out from the way I thought they were going to be.
Interesting. Well, I love a maple finish barrel. I'll have to check out the Greenbrier. You said it was the honey finish or the maple finish?
Greenbrier honey.
I'll have to check that out. We did do a brulee maple finish barrel, which was super fun and unique with Nulu, I think last year. So anyways, I like that.
Yeah, that was a cool process, how they did the brulee barrels. I actually went over and looked at those guys there in Nulu and talked to the guys well, and that was pretty cool. So that was a delicious finish.
Nice. All right. Before we get into questions from the audience, we always ask our esteemed guests to select a couple songs that they feel encapsulates. I've had too much whiskey already. Encapsulates. I'm saying that wrong, but you know what I'm saying. The distillery or the whiskey, and you picked Fish Back on the Train and Trampled by Turtles, Our Town. Can you tell us a little bit about those picks quickly, why you chose those songs and why they remind you of High West?
Yep. So Fish Back on the Train. I'm just a huge Fish fan. High West has always been on a journey, across the country, kind of leading the way and making spirits definitely differently and not necessarily following the paths of others. And then as far as the closing song, that song just reminds me of home. And no matter what city I'm in, no matter what city I'm talking about High West, when I hear that song, it just sitting at the bar with a glass of whiskey in my hand is just something about it.
Awesome. I love it. All right, Brandon. Well, I appreciate you walking us through all these barrels and answering some questions. We're going to dive into questions from the audience now, and I'm going to navigate this. Let me see here. Sometimes people ask questions. I'm like, oh shoot, I already asked that of him. So, I don't think I asked this, but correct me if I'm wrong. What is the most unusual? Sam Steepleton asks, what is the most unusual barrel you have experimented with when it comes to a finish?
So I messed with some when I was at Copper and Kings doing brandy. We did a tropical brandy where we distilled a bunch of tropical fruits and then barrel aged those. The spirit itself turned okay, but when it went to barrel age and then I tried to finish something else in it, that one got a little weird. And then we did a series of pomegranate barrels as well. And that one was an acquired taste. Some days it was delicious, and then some days I was like, holy shit, what have I done?
That sounds definitely interesting. So I'm glad you tasted them and determined they weren't good enough for everybody. So
not ready for everyone.
This is not a pomegranate finished barrel, but I did just pour some Prisoner Share, which is
man, that is delicious.
It's finished in Prisoner red wine barrels. So just on the theme of finished whiskeys, I'm going to move on to this one. So great. As you can see, I've made a significant dent in that bottle. But moving on to questions from the audience still. Braden asks, as you mentioned, each barrel finish is different and yields a surprise. How many of these finish experiments are successful and produce a better tasting whiskey? What's your success rate, I guess he's asking?
I think the majority are successful, actually. I think there, of course, are going to be a few outliers, but I spend a lot of time, the team spends a lot of time tasting a spirit before we decide if we want to put it in a finishing barrel to begin with or not. And then we spend a lot of time looking at different categories of barrels and tasting, that original product as well, whether it be a wine or a different type of spirit or honey or whatever it may be. So there's a lot of forethought that goes into it. It's not just just guessing and putting it in there and moving on. So I'm going to say my success rate is, I'm going to say 92 actually. Ooh. And then a lot of that, I find that if I don't like it after the first barrel, that sometimes I can like flip it into a second real quick for maybe a week, maybe 3 months, and kind of finish that little bit to where I think something's missing. It's finishing's a little more malleable than what you might think.
Have you ever done like, and this is going to be a random, this isn't a question from the audience, and this is just because I thought of it. Have you ever tasted a finished barrel and you're like, that one really wasn't what I wanted, but maybe I can blend it with some like another finished barrel? Could you do like a multi-finished whiskey?
A lot of times I'll have this grand idea in my head of like, man, this is going to be great. And then I'll get close with that first one and be like, but it's still missing something else. And that's kind of the cool thing about bouncing around and doing a lot of different barrel finishes is that you get so much experience and tasting in these different things that you're like, and you'll taste one barrel and be like, that's what that other one is missing. And you'll throw a little bit here and a little bit there, and that mad scientist aspect kind of comes out. And it really allows you the openness to create something truly unique.
Cool. I love it. I like this question. Scott McLemore asks, is there a point where the barrel stops giving and starts taking desirable flavor back out of the whiskey rather than adding to it?
For sure. So new barrels, the standard is esterification, or what that barrel is going to give you as far as the molecular chain, tends to finish or at least peak at 8 years. Finishing is a little bit more subjective. Some people will tell you that, a barrel's finished in a couple weeks to a couple months. I'm a little more of a traditionalist and kind of like that year point. But I have definitely run across barrels where like, ooh, that's been in there too long. And now I'm tasting the wood and not necessarily the spirit or even the spirit that was in that barrel to begin with. We spend so much time creating the spirit and waiting for it. The last thing that I want to do is drill into it and taste liquid 2x4s.
How often are you tasting it? Is there like a start time and like, I don't want to say end time. Like there has to be a start time where you're not tasting it like 1 month after. Oh, maybe you are. I don't know. Like, is there?
Again, it kind of depends. So out of the gate for a new spirit, I usually start tasting things at year 1. And then every year after that until I get to the minimum age that I want. And then I start tasting them on 6 months. For finishing, we'll go in and we will taste the original product that was in that barrel. We'll smell that barrel and look at the quality of it. And then depending upon how strong I smell the barrel itself, will kind of set the pace for how often I want to taste something. Usually on finishes, I'll come in at like week 1 or 2 just to kind of get an idea. All right, this is going the way I want it to, or no, it's not. And then after that, I'm usually at like 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, 8, 12. Anytime after a year, I'm really starting to peak at it about every 20 to 30 days.
I just noticed your fish poster in the background, by the way.
Yeah, so huge fish fan. Saw my first 6 shows in '97, and I have been chasing that band ever since.
Amazing. I love it. Clay Cooper asks, when finishing a whiskey, are you typically trying to complement or transform the base whiskey?
Typically complement, but there are definitely instances in which transforming surprises all of us. I like to usually start with a whiskey that can hold its own. You kind of start with good ingredients to get something good out of it. If I'm trying to hide something and just like cover up some trash, 99 out of 100 times, it's not going to work out. So I really like to have a whiskey or a spirit that like I am proud of on its own, and then just add to it from there. So a compliment is the majority, but definitely transform does happen.
Michael Williams asks, I'm a newbie. Is it better to taste whiskey chilled or at room temperature?
So man, that's a good question. So the majority of the people are going to tell you at room temperature. It kind of allows it to sit a little bit more on the palate, and I'd say as a newbie, start there. That also being said, I find myself as I get more experienced and into a certain style of spirit, I will kind of like to play with it at temperature marks. And then I'm also very temperature dependent upon the time of year. When it's summertime and it's 100 degrees here in Kentucky and 90% humidity, there's a bottle of Rendezvous Rye in the freezer, and I am drinking that straight right out of the freezer, sometimes out of the bottle when the wife's not looking, just to kind of cool down. But when I'm trying to like actually evaluate something, I will typically pour it in the glass, let it sit anywhere from 1 to 3 minutes, and then come back to it over 5 to 10 minutes, and then take my notes that way. That's usually how I do it initially, and then I'll start to play with it after that based on time left open, out of the bottle, in a bigger glass, temperature changes, stuff like that. But usually, long answer short, or short answer long, however you want to say that, it's room temperature.
Nice. Linda Archer asks, have Utah laws changed traditional industry practices when it comes to making whiskey in Utah?
So Utah laws are definitely some of the strangest and strictest laws that I have run across. I mean, up until 2002, it was extremely hard to buy alcohol in the state of Utah, and especially sell alcohol on the streets to the public. So it's a little harder and a little more paperwork to bring alcohol in and bring alcohol out. And then they definitely regulate a tremendous amount more on the distribution to the customer. But as far as the production side, it's relatively standard because the federal government wants its taxes, and so does the state, and they are all watching to make sure where every drop goes.
Makes sense. Yeah, Utah's crazy.
It's nuts. It's a hard state to sell booze in.
On our trip, I took out one of our senior VPs of operations, and we were going to a few bars, and I'm like, look at all this crazy stuff they have to do. This is insane. And he's like, yeah, I don't think I ever want to open a restaurant here. I'm like, I don't blame you.
Nope, not at all. The digital pour spouts and all that's way too much work. I'm good. I just like a good.
And like the ABV limit on draft beer, it's like
can't do it. Yep, too much.
Couple more questions, and then we'll pick our favorite two of the night. Your favorite two of the night. Ed Garcia wants to know, what degree do you suggest someone have in order to work at a distillery lab?
So at a distillery lab, you need at least a bachelor's in food science, or biology, or some sort of chemistry degree. Really a good way to get into it is like go knock on the door of the distillery, start out as a tour guide or a bartender, get your foot in the door. That tends to be the best way to work yourself up the ladder. But yeah, a good food science degree goes a long way in the lab.
Awesome. I got one more question, and then we'll pick our favorites of the evening. Angel de la Norte says, what is one of your favorite things coming from the wine world that you incorporate into your distilling and whiskey?
So that's a great question, actually. I'm going to say the low and slow approach. So as a winemaker, it was all about sterility. Fermentation takes anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks. We are trying to preserve the essence of the fruit and the grape. So, and it's very meticulous, and there's a lot of room for mistakes. I find a lot of people that start in the distilling world, they're used to fermentations anywhere from 2 to 4 days, putting their finger and their head in the mash and just like moving on. And yes, that does work. But I find the aspect of me being taught to slow down, be extremely clean and meticulous, has helped me beyond belief in my overall distillation practices and overall distillery management.
Awesome. I was trying to open this bottle of High West Midwinter because I'm like, I want to end with this. But
is this the Act 13?
Yeah.
Oh man, this is a delicious release.
Well, tell us a little bit about it while I struggle to open this bottle, because I'm like, it's my birthday tomorrow, and I would like to have a sip of this.
Yep. So this is this is a rye that is finished in a blend of tawny and ruby port barrels. I believe the finish on this one was right around a year. I don't have the proof in front of me, but it is High West signature limited time release. It is what has put us on the map. It is absolutely delicious. So I am a rye fan to begin with, but when you take and add rye and then you start talking about port barrels, man, it is a match made in heaven. So you're going to get the spice up front and then sweetness of the port on the back. They're just kind of round things out and give you a lot of those red fruit, cherry notes. It's a delicious spirit. It's one of my favorites, and it's one of my favorite releases in the last few years as well.
Yeah, this is great. This is actually the first time I've tried this since I got a bottle at High West back at the Dram release party. Which, if you have the opportunity to go to the High West Midwinter Nights Dram release party, like, plan a trip around it.
It's magical.
I can't express to you, like, I've been to a lot of industry events in my tenure with doing what I do, and there's a lot of great things. This was by far the best one single night event I've ever been to in my entire life, when it comes to like a whiskey release party. So it's in September, right? Or is it October?
October was this last year. Yeah.
Got it. It's like early October.
Great. Yeah.
Oh, it was my wife's birthday last year. Maybe that also played a factor into it. But she was there, by the way. It was my wife's birthday. I went to go drink whiskey. Anyways, she was there.
Everybody dresses up. It's
phenomenal.
Pure fantasy. It's crazy.
Yeah. But anyways, I highly recommend, if you can make it there and get a ticket, please do so. Let's go through unless you, Brandon, do you already know your favorite two questions? I'm happy to run through what was asked, but you let me know.
We can run through them if you want. I think I wrote most of them down. I think I got my favorite two.
Yeah, pick your favorite two.
All right. I'm going to go with the question about what I brought with the wine world over to myself. I really like that one.
All right.
And
that
then,
was Angel de la Note.
Yep. And then really just because it's such a wild and interesting conversation that everyone should look into and hopefully experience to some degree, I'm going to go with the weird rules from Utah.
Got it. I like the question about the wine world and what you brought over from that. So I'm going to give that the Angel de la Note. We're going to get you a bottle of High West Midwinter Night Dram, and Linda Archer, we're going to get you a really cool High West blanket, and we'll get those sent out. But Brandon, this was honestly, I know I've said this 5 times already, but just the experience that you and your team provided when we went out to High West last fall was really special to me. And I know it was really special to our team. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you to Kate and Jennifer and Erica and yourself. And I apologize if I'm missing anybody, but everyone that put that together, it was truly special. And I thank you very much for your time this evening. And I'm going to go listen to some Fish tonight, I think.
Gore. I love it. Hey, appreciate the time. Appreciate you guys coming out, picking the barrels with us. It really means a lot. We are very, very happy with the brand we have established. Our hospitality is some of the best, if not the best, in the world. We were so excited to bring you guys out and really show what High West is all about. And then it's super cool to have your group listen to me ramble for the last hour or so.
Yeah, they have to listen to me ramble once a month, so I mean, you're totally fine. Well, thank you again. Have a good night, everybody. Hope everyone has a great April. And look at that! Happy early birthday to me. Tomorrow's my birthday, so
happy birthday.
Thank you, Laura. Shout out to Laura, who helps us run the club. She's the she works all the magic behind the scenes. I just do all the fun stuff. So thank you, Laura. I appreciate it. And happy birthday to me. I love it. Cheers.
Happy birthday, sir.